Hello everyone, this is Bradley. This is the fourth episode of the beginner series on geometry nodes. I hope you've watched the previous episodes so that your experience with this one will be more comfortable. Today's topic is a continuation of the last episode about store named attribute. Today we're going to elaborate on fields and the capture attribute node. A bit of recap from the previous episode. Attributes refer to properties, such as the vertex groups, weight painting, eevee maps, most of which already have an official name built into the system. Or we can assign a name using store-named attribute. On the other hand, in geometry nodes, we can actually use anonymous attributes or fields to directly pass values around without names or duplication of these two guys. These are more easier to use and more hardware friendly. Before talking about capture attribute itself, we will have to dive deep into the nature of attributes and fields along with this concept. Here's a classic example I use all the time to explain attributes and fields. We start with a cube, use set position, which we are already familiar with, and join it together with another cone that also has a set position with some offset. So we can separate the cube and the cone apart in the viewport. Last time, I've already discussed the implicit attributes. For example, the position socket on set position node has already been filled with a position attribute, as you can see from the tooltip. To further test it, if I plug a position into the socket, nothing changes. But if you plug in normal, the cube will change. If you plug in combine XYZ, things will just be worse. Now, this is where the magic starts to happen. If I output the same position node to the cone, you will find that nothing changes in the viewport either. The cube is still the cube, the cone is still the cone. Both of them are using exactly the same position node, but the question is, how can this node output the position of the cube and the position of the cone at the same time? The answer is extremely simple. The position node itself doesn't contain any value. The value is extracted from the green geometry data block. If you look at the spreadsheet, you will see that the cube has its position for the cube, and the cone has its positions for the cone. The linkages are just referring to the data from the green geometry. As I mentioned earlier, attributes are properties of these geometries. Think of it like a birth date. The birth date of a cube may be in January. The birth date of a cone may be in May. The birth dates can be different depending on whom you ask, and therefore you get different answers. When you are doing calculations like a vector math on the position, it's like asking your birth date plus 1 month, and each of them will still output different values. This means what looks like a single position node actually has two linkages, each representing a completely different value. That's why the linkages have a dashed line. Because the birth date itself doesn't have any value, it only makes sense when you have a target to answer this question. And these green geometries that hold the answer have solid lines. In contrast, you will find the combine XYZ also have a solid line, because 0 is always 0, whether it's on Earth or on the Moon. One important aspect of this field system is you often see timing is only available on those geometry nodes, but whatever kind of math nodes never show any timing. Because the calculation can happen differently for different geometry. If my cube has 100 vertices on each dimension, obviously the calculation stress could be much more than a cone that only has a few vertices. This is very important later on if you want to pass this dashed link to other socket shape. Sometimes you will see the error warning. For example, you will find on our cube we have a specific type of rectangular socket that looks like 1. It means this socket only accepts a constant single value, like the combined XYZ we have here. If I add a random value node, set it to vector, and plug it to the scale of the cube, it will immediately generate an error saying that it expects a single value. This is because we are outputting a dashed link. If you check the hidden value of the ID through the tooltip, you find it's an implicit attribute of ID. And we don't have a geometry to extract this data for this dashed link. It's like losing your ID and want to get a new one, but the system asks you to verify. No ID, no verification. No verification, no new ID. This sounds to be very stupid, but this is exactly the issue of this setup given our system. Ultimately, there is no value in the scale. Although we have the cube produced, the scale is 0, so we don't see it. In the future series, I will discuss how to generate random values to generate different cube instances. But for now, I will stop here. I want you to understand why the dashed line can never be put into these single value sockets. Allowing it may sound very convenient in this specific case, but it will not work as easily as you wish, and in reality, we may lose all convenience and flexibility in many other cases, like our set position node. Changing the foundation will also make all existing tutorials outdated again. If you cannot recognize this mistake, it's very harmful to learn further about the geometry nodes. It's like you don't understand why 1 + 2 = 3, but you are still dreaming to have a doctoral degree on math. So, we have now discussed the deeper meaning of fields and attributes. How's that relevant to the topic of capture attribute? It's like a photo of your past, because geometries are always subject to change when you are modifying them in geometry nodes. As you grow older along with the node tree, you may grow taller, you may grow more muscles, so you take a photo to record each moment of yourself, and therefore capture attribute. Generally, capture attribute is required when you need to preserve an attribute when geometry is modified significantly. So here we are in an example, basically the same as what we have earlier. One scenario for capture attribute is that you may have a joint geometry. It's like a marriage, and one of them changed their last name. The system wants to have a record of your old name in order to identify the same person. So I take a capture attribute nodes on one of the linkage before joint geometry. I will go to the side panel and add a socket for Boolean data type and check the box. So you should be aware that the box is checked on one side and not the other. If you take a look with the status after joining, you can actively distinguish between the cube and the sphere. So this is one of the use cases for capture attribute to identify all the parts of a geometry even after joining. Another example is if you convert one geometry type to another. For example, using meshed points node, in which we literally convert the meshed points. Right now, I have a colorful normal displayed on our mesh cube. Normal is used to determine how a surface will reflect the light. But if I view it after the conversion, the points are showing black colors. This is because vertices don't have a surface used to reflect the light. So it doesn't contain the normal value itself. What if you want to preserve this value during this conversion? You use capture attribute when it was still available on the surface. And as a dynamic socket, I can directly put normal into it to form the sockets. By reading this captured normal value, you can see our points are displaying colorful normal values, same as our mesh. This is equally true to many other cases, like mesh to curve, curve to mesh, curve to points, and so on and so forth. There can even be an example about instance on points. Although it seems to have a quite different name, but you can see conversions from points to instances, which we will discuss in the future. The third scenario is when you modify geometry and change some specific attributes directly. Here I have an example where I start with a subdivided plane and use a random value node to offset the position of each vertices to create this kind of ugly displacement effect. I've also prepared a vertex group selecting some vertices. So I just go to the modifier panel and enable the vertex group attribute in selection to delete geometry. As we are deleting geometry, the ID is changed on the geometry, and therefore the displacement with and without it will not be the same. If you want to keep the results regardless of deletion, you will need a capture attribute. There are multiple approaches available, so I will duplicate it for demonstration. You can capture the ID before deletion. You find it works. You can also directly capture the result of random value before deletion. Keep in mind, this is just an example where deleting geometry shifts the ID. There can be more direct examples, such as using setID to change the ID, or setPosition to change the position. There can be even more of the cases. These can all lead to changes in attributes. And when you want to preserve these attributes before the changes, you need to capture attribute. There can be more examples when to use capture attribute node. There can also be exceptions when capture attribute is not working. But the usage generally follows the three scenarios I mentioned earlier. It's not a must in your node tree, but when you need it, you need it. A very interesting question here is having an attribute in the name of capture attribute node? And we have basically explained the two major types of attribute as named attribute versus anonymous attribute. So what does the attribute mean here? Wherever we use it, it doesn't have a name. So it's actually the anonymous attribute here. In fact, the capture attribute is basically the anonymous version of the store named attribute. They can almost achieve the exact same functions, but one often come in a pair. The other is using the linkage to pass around directly. One can take up disk space. The other is more hardware friendly. Vertex group and some properties can only be used through named attribute, and the named attribute is required to pass information from geometry nodes to shader. These two functions are not otherwise possible through anonymous attributes and are serving as the main reasons to use store named attributes instead. In addition, if you are familiar with the node names or simply search for the term field, whether you see field average, field minimum maximum, or accumulate field, you will find a commonality that all these field nodes never contain a geometry socket because they are not meant to capture anything by themselves. Linkages are passed like fields, and they are captured to be anonymous attribute. That's why sometimes I use anonymous attribute and the field interchangeably to imply this level of relationship. This is just some interesting background about naming and definition. You don't need to worry about them in detail. You just need to know why and when to use capture attributes now. Lastly, I want to point out some fatal mistakes or features that you should be aware of. Sometimes people output the capture attribute value without the geometry. This is extremely bad. At this point in this tutorial, you should fully understand why this is not acceptable, because all these dashed links don't carry data on their own. They must extract their values from the green geometry. So outputting a dashed link without green geometry is just a joke. This is not forgivable, giving all explanations in this tutorial. Another important characteristic about field system is that I mentioned the viewer can take one geometry and one value at the maximum. In reality, you can think of the viewer as only taking one socket at the most, but it needs a geometry socket in order to extract information for these dashed links. As a result, we end up with one geometry socket and one value socket for its function. While you can manually view a single dashed link without geometry, there will be no data whatsoever, due to the reason I kept mentioning in today's episode. Today's topic is extremely important and fundamental for using geometry nodes in general, because it sits at the core of how this entire system was designed since Blender 3.0. We may review relevant concepts in future episodes over and over again as we gain more knowledge about the nodes and have more example setups to test with, but they may not be as elaborated as today in order to save time in each episode. Next episode, we will continue discussing these kind of concepts on sample nodes, such as sample index and the sample nearest surface. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll probably see you next time. Bye-bye.